Some of you may know, but maybe you don't, but it's okay if you don't, because it was over in a flash. But the Alabama legislature approved new legislative districts. As ever, they are extremely gerrymandered, although, to be fair to the Alabama legislature, I guess, if we wanted to do such a thing, it's not as bad as the new Ohio districts, where Republicans won 53% of the vote, but would get 80% of the seats under the new districts. So I don't think ours is quite that bad, but Tish is going to tell us exactly how bad they are. The Alabama ACLU has filed a lawsuit against the state for these maps. So we wanted to bring her on to talk about these maps and their lawsuit. Tish Faulks, again, is the legal director from the Alabama ACLU. Tish, thanks for joining us tonight.
Well, thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
Great. So, Ben, if you could turn her up for me just a little bit. I don't know if my feedback is a bit different from everybody else's. She's a little bit low for me. So I think most of the folks, Tish, know what gerrymandering is. But for the people that don't, could you give us a really quick rundown of what that means?
Absolutely. Gerrymandering is when a group separates and divides a larger group that it represents in a way that is intended to give unfair advantage. And there is racial gerrymandering, there is partisan gerrymandering, and occasionally we may see language gerrymandering. Basically, what you need to take away from it is that the pie has been divided up and everyone does not get the same size piece.
And that's, the phrase that's bandied about a lot when we talk about gerrymandering is politicians choosing their voters instead of the voters choosing their politicians. In Alabama, this really affects Democrats more than it does, or it affects Democrats more negatively than it does Republicans. But I think that when we talk about fair representation, I don't think that this should be a partisan issue. And I think that we should be able to look at any sort of gerrymandering and say, like, that's not, like, it's not appropriate that, that you get 50% of the vote and then 80% of the representation. Like that just, I think at a base level, people understand that. Whether you're Republican or Democrat, you're black or white, you understand in a Republican small r form of government that we've got, the representational democracy, the thing is that you elect representatives to do your bidding in the government. It's not supposed to be that they get to pick you. And so that's, people say that, oh, we're a republic, we're not a democracy. And I think that the distinction there is a bit like not meaningful in a lot of cases. Right. But to the extent that it is, a republic is supposed to be representative, like the representatives are supposed to be representative of the people. And in so many places today, they are not. So, can you tell us what was the state of the districts in Alabama before these new lines were drawn?
Well, here in Alabama, the Republican Party has a supermajority. That means that on any given issue, the Republican Party has enough representatives that they can overturn a governor's veto. Now, here in Alabama, both houses of the legislature and the governor's mansion are controlled by one party. But the issue comes into play irrespective of the party. And in fact, there are places in the country where Democrats are in control and they gerrymander they get an unfair advantage.
Mm-hmm. Right.
Here in Alabama.
No, go ahead.
The population is.
Tish, I'm sorry.
Is about 40% color.
Tish, I'm sorry, you were starting to break up when you started to say that. You were saying that the population in Alabama is 40% people of color. Can you pick up there?
Absolutely. But candidates of choice do not reflect the population. We have Alabama divvied up in such a way that people other than the representatives for a particular area are controlling their legislative agenda. For example, in Birmingham, Jefferson County is populated enough to have 5 districts, but in fact is carved up in such a way that it has 7, and rural counties dig in to Jefferson County and just gut the legislative preference of the people of Jefferson County. And Montgomery is similar, Huntsville is similar, Mobile is similar. And ultimately what we see here is that representatives basically sit and look at the map and decide who they want to be their constituents. And in fact, when we were observing special session, the chairman of the reapportionment committee said they invited each representative in to see if they were happy with their map, happy with who they were going to represent. And that's problematic.
That's
people
insane.
Should choose the representative. The representative should not be choosing the people, as you said.
That's wild. I did not know that they got people got these special, it's like we were on the menu. The voters. Are you happy with the plate that we're serving you today? And this is bad democratically speaking, again, small d, even for the big D Democratic representatives. Why is that? Because if you have like an 80-20 district, and all of the districts are like that, or 65-35 or something like that. There's not a single competitive congressional district for the U.S. House of Representatives in the state of Alabama as of the last drawings. And that,
that's exactly right.
That's not good. It's not good. That there is almost zero chance that a Republican wins Terry Sewell's district ever. And there's almost a 0% chance that a Democrat wins Mo Brooks's district. And that's bad.
That's right.
Like, that's not good for democracy, for like our representation in the government. And I think that people should be more upset about this. And you know, we are also on conservative talk radio stations, and one of the hosts, his way of dulling people's interest in this is he acts like drawing the maps is the most boring thing ever. Like every time he got during the session when they were drawing these maps, every time he would get a representative on to talk about it, he would act like he was falling asleep because he felt like it was so boring. And that's just such BS, because like I feel that he knows what he's doing. The people who he's bringing on know what he's doing. And it's like they're trying to pacify their audiences by it's bad for them too that their representatives are choosing, it's not good for anybody. You don't get the cream of the crop doesn't rise to the top. And it's just, I get very frustrated by attempts to lessen what an injustice this is, and that it just, like, it happened in 2 days. There was virtually no.
There was no conversation. There was no transparency. And in fact, if you look at what is discussed about the process, the legislature and the committee failed to do the due diligence that we know is necessary to draw maps appropriately. And look, here's the thing. When you look at the map of Alabama, you know that there are certain places where there's going to be a high population of Black and brown people. We know that. We know that through the Black Belt, there's going to be a high percentage of Black and brown people. But what we don't expect is that our legislators are going to pack as many Black voters into an area as they can to prevent those voters from having an impact or make competitive the districts around where the Black community is centralized. You see this happen in Montgomery. Remember, if you go back and look, there was a representative whose district was drawn in such a way that she was basically losing her core constituents, and she complained, I don't know how to represent these people. These people are not going to be open and interested in having me represent them. And the map changed. And when you pack as many people as you can into as small a district as you can, you are conceding that you fear the power of those voices if they collect and collaborate. And you also prevent new blood, uninitiated blood to come into the process. For example, we have a candidate who is looking to run for a district in Prattville. He's got time working with the governor. He's got experience dealing with legislators, and he knew he wanted to run for this district that did not have an incumbent. But the lines were drawn in such a way that he is now not a resident of the district for which he was planning to run. They basically cut him off at the knees so that he could not represent or step forward to represent a new or different idea of what Republicans should be here in Alabama. And it happens all of the time. The lines move when a competitor, whether it's Democrat or Republican, steps in and wants to shake up the scene, and they are drawn out of the district where they are planning on making their move. And it might only be 2 or 3 blocks one way or the other. But what we see is a cronyism of selecting who is going to hold a position, and then everything possible is done to dissuade competitors from stepping in and muddying the waters by making it a competitive electoral process. Right. And that's not what Alabama needs.